Welcome to the KFA Podcast, where our mission is to keep faith alive by kicking ass.
I talk for a living, so I'm good.
Oh, shit.
You know that.
But what we find is, like, we'll have a meeting in here, we'll be talking, and we're like, man, we should have, like, had the cameras out and we're recording
This morning,
that,
it was
'cause
amazing.
Really,
so
really
funny.
good.
Yeah, because you can gel on a lot of stuff and then just kind of go brain
Yeah.
dead under the camera. Yeah.
So I just want to, we'll just let it flow the way it flows, and we'll see what happens, right?
Cool.
So no topics really. Like, I know, like, right now a big topic is, like, the lawsuits behind real estate going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. Obviously can't go into legal stuff, but it's, yeah, I have opinions on all of that, and yeah, I think it's, yeah. My husband quizzed me on it last week, so it's fine.
Maybe
It's
the
really funny,
conversation will
actually.
go that direction.
Yeah.
But,
It's really funny. He was
mostly,
like, hey, you might need to be aware of this. And then he sent me a link. And I was like, cool. You might need to know how to program computers at your engineering job. Oh, I forgot. You've been doing that for 30 years.
Ooh, it's going to be cold at Thanksgiving this year. Whoa.
And then I did educate him about that for roughly an hour. Yeah. And then he was like, okay, just kidding. Never mind. I can see you're aware.
You know what's going on.
I was like, only every month for, I don't know, like a year and a half. We've already preemptively done stuff about this
Washington was one of the first states. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I worry for buyer's agents right now, honestly, with all this stuff that's coming out. And I worry for home buyers as well, because now if buyer's agents are going to get paid a different way, we might need to finance and add to their closing costs the buyer's agent commission, which that's going to make it harder to buy a house. So
I just think these things are, large sea changes that are not going to take place over a year or 2 years, or, it's maybe 5 or 10 years from now we're looking and things might be somewhat different.
Okay.
But I do not currently think there's such a thing as like an avatar for an agent that replaces what we do with physical access to the property and someone who has, contractual and some legal knowledge and is going to be your advocate through the whole thing.
Right.
And I don't go buy a washer or dryer without finding a person in an appliance store that knows something about the washer and dryer.
Right.
To then have me kind of cherry pick from what they're saying and what I ask to be educated on, to then implement my plan.
Right.
And so why on earth would anyone want to go forth with a house purchase without some advocate? We do not do that with cars. We do not just walk onto a car lot, scan our ID or whatever, and then go drive a car.
Right.
I mean, probably people would want to make sure we're not, I don't know, drunk or, whatever. And so, like, we go through a person.
Take a shower in the car.
And then also, I guess the car one day will talk to us, right? And that would be hard. But, talk to us and, say all the cool features that the car has or whatever. But anyway, that would be distracting. So I don't know. I show up at a car lot because I have questions about cars. And I'm not sure if I'm going to buy one yet or not. Mm-hmm. But, what happens then from that moment on helps me to decide what I'm going to buy and when and if. And then I get to the how, which is like you guys, what.
How you have an educated guess or an educated decision, right?
Yeah, and I can figure out the how. But that early inspiration now with houses definitely takes place on the internet. But they can't get to the point of a purchase without at some point getting physical access to the house in most cases, because like I tell buyers all the time, you just don't know anything until you've stepped foot inside the house. You can't tell how it smells, what it feels like, what's the light like, what's really the level of trim, or are those baseboards this short, or are they 5-inch baseboards?
That could be coming soon. They could have, like, you're looking at a house on Zillow and it says, sniff here, scratch and sniff here.
Scratch and
you know,
sniff, yeah. Virtual tour. Yeah, you don't know if the neighbor's dog is barking. You don't know really what the feel of the neighborhood is. You
noise.
really can't tell the layout properly. And even the 3D videos, I don't feel give that genuine understanding of the home.
And some of these wide angle photos nowadays that make it look like it's completely different than, I'm like, wow, that is a huge pool. Oh, it's a hot tub. Oh, I thought that was a massive swimming pool. You know what I mean? It's like just the way they do some of these, you can't tell if you're not physically there.
How is the yard, because I recently had a client's property that, had a particularly deep, really nice yard. But the thing is, once you take the photos of it, sometimes it represents it as larger, sometimes it's smaller, and you just can't get a really good sense for anything.
And like Larry was saying, sometimes there's a freeway behind those trees in that large, nice backyard that you don't know, and then you get there and you hear it, and it's super annoying, but it looked serene.
Yeah. I myself almost bought a property like that, where, I was traveling here from another state and we were deciding whether or not to buy. And then we just ended up almost making an offer, really. And then I ended up with an opportunity to fly here and check it out in person. And the house had no relationship to what I had seen in the photos, depth-wise, whatever, all the color, it was the same home, but it was so irrelated that I just instantly understood that, I couldn't, that was not the home for me. And so every home is either better, worse, whatever. So I don't think we're going to do away with that. Also, even if we did away with us being the key opener, we're not going to do away with that representation, that desire to have a representation. But yes, one day, does the buyer then pay us? But if you give both,
let's go to the money thing.
Yeah, if you give both parties a choice, I think sellers would still want to be the ones to facilitate that commission being paid, and just having it be on top of the.
What if it does get rolled into the loan? How do you see that playing out? Do you think that's a negative? Because I personally don't. I don't think it's that big of a deal. If it's
rolled into the loan now, it's just not considered a closing cost. It's considered part of the purchase.
Right.
It's not. It is rolled into the loan now. It definitely is, and it has to appraise for that actually.
But now it's going to be a line item.
Sure, might be a line item,
Buyer's
might be
agent commission.
Yeah, and sometimes the home warranty is. It just depends. So I think it's bearable. Yeah, I think that buyer's agents will have to fight for themselves again, or more, or a little bit more. But we do anyway. We fight for ourselves as listing agents, as buyer's agents. I think that giving what our relevance is, a buyer should have some help if they're going to be engaging in the most expensive thing they ever buy. There's a whole lot of circumstances where people utilize the services of an expert, and that's if they're getting a divorce, if they're if they're going through a lawsuit situation, whatever, they utilize a lawyer, an attorney, and so there's they may have coaching for something that they're doing. I think if you're good at what you do, you'll always find a place.
So you're not really concerned about this rule change?
It's not going to change real estate overnight. The rule is really that, there has to be more transparency, and that sellers have to really understand where their money is going and what options they have. And if they, even right now, sellers have the option, and I always tell them, this is what I commonly see in the marketplace for a certain rate, but that's completely up to you. In fact, I cannot tell you there's a norm or any of those things. I mean, there's, price fixing and antitrust laws and all kinds of stuff that come into play. So I do disclaimers every time I meet with a seller to let them know that ultimately it's your choice if you want to offer a buyer's agent commission. But my understanding is that was not really what was happening. And so, and buyers, we want them to have more transparency too. And I think agents who have value to add to the transaction, whether they're a listing agent or a buyer's agent, there will always be a place for that. What exactly that looks like and what document is used, that could be different. Yeah. I mean, before I ever became a realtor, I was actually helping investors source investment houses, but I used realtors to complete that for them, to help them. And so my job was to identify what, in my opinion, were the best investments in a given city or area, and then recommend those, and then could get them connected to agents and things. So it's interesting, and I was paid a good fee for doing that.
I want to digress a little bit and ask you a couple questions just to get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah.
So you have, from what I've heard over the years of knowing you, an extensive past in all of the degrees you've had, all of the jobs you've done, all of the opera singing, the investing, you've done more in your life than most people, than 5 lives. So I just want to just go back a little bit for everybody who's going to pay attention and watch this and listen, for people that want to get to know you a little bit more, possibly to join your team, or possibly just to get to know who you are a little bit more.
Yeah.
Can you just give us, not an hour-long version, but just here's my snapshot of all the cool stuff I am and I've done.
This was a 3-hour recording. No. Yeah.
Just want people to know you a little bit.
You threw a lot out there. Yeah. So, so I've been in sales for roughly 36 years. I'm dating myself a bit, but it means that around 13 I started. I was the youngest official Tupperware dealer in the state of New Mexico. And I was winning awards at it. You figure out as a kid without a whole lot of means that, sales anyway is a bit like magic, because you can make uncapped income, and all you have to do is work real hard and maybe, talk pretty or something, right? So you have to use intelligence. You can, I was a kid with a lot of allergies and stuff, so doing other people's yard work was never going to work for me. I could barely be outside if someone was cutting grass anywhere, but and I tended to be ill a lot. So yeah, but I realized that being well spoken and knowing a few things actually helped a lot. And so being able to be a go-between or in fact advocate or educator about anything is sales. And so if you believe in the product and you can sell it, then you get to make money. And so I learned that a long time ago. And they had to actually kind of change the rules or something for me so that I could win my awards, because my mother had put me under her dealer numbers. So it was all very hush-hush and cool. But yeah, it was, people thought I was like 18 or something based on my height and how I carried myself at the time. My mother was very clear that we were 13. My mother was very clear we were to enunciate properly and, have a good vocabulary and all those things if we expected to get by in the world. So she just held us to the standard that she was raised by in New Mexico and Texas. So that's kind of how I, my start in sales, and I got quite good at it, actually, and it gave me great power. I was able to help our family with bills. I was able to buy school clothes. I was able to buy school supplies, do a lot of things that I wouldn't have had access to. Wow. One of my big wins was that I got to pay for us to go see a movie. We hadn't been in like a year, and I've always loved movies. So we went and saw the first Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom when it came out, not like 6 weeks later when it was cheaper or whatever. So that was really cool. And I was terrified during the insect scene and threw my popcorn on the entire row of people behind me. But that is neither here nor there. So
I know the scene you're talking about.
Yeah. So, and then I when I got out of high school, I actually moved to Northern California in pursuit of a degree, which I fell naturally into sales, advertising, and marketing. And I eventually had a career as a marketing executive for CBS and Infinity Broadcasting. And so that is how I came into designing other people's advertising and coming up with ad campaigns, and I could sell all lines. So that meant, whether it was nationwide billboards to nationwide TV advertising, and I really enjoyed the creativity of it. So one of my favorites was passion branding, where I would take a nonprofit organization, so Habitat for Humanity or something, and combine them with a for-profit, and then combine their ad spend or use the for-profit ad spend. So it would be like Habitat for Humanity with Home Depot or something like that, and we would create an ad campaign pushing something, products, and then also getting the the ability for the nonprofit to educate the public about what it is that they do, which is always so hard for nonprofits to do because they usually they're trying to spend the least amount of money on an advertising budget. And so you combine them with a for-profit corporation that is just looking to passion brand themselves. They want to be considered friendly to things that matter. And sometimes they could be very passionate about it, or sometimes they're just looking for a way to sell whatever. But that was a lot of fun.
Brand awareness and eyeballs.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And actually through that process also, I started consulting companies large and small on identifying their product, knowing their mission, knowing where what their primary product was, and in fact knowing where their customers came from. And so for me, statistics has been a really important part of all sales for a long time. So that's just important. And then fast forward, I took a little time off, had our boys, and then I always knew that either going back into advertising or even just expanding what I was doing in the creative field were options for me. And in the meantime, yes, I got a Bachelor of Science in International Business, and I also got a teaching credential in Texas. But I went on to go into real estate because I'd already become a property investor. So in 2008, my husband and I started buying little kind of broken down homes and turning them into rentals. I never was a flipper, but I was someone that believed in long-term hold for the highest gain, and especially getting the highest gain out of
Texas, right?
Out of the work. I started doing that in Houston first while we lived there, and then eventually segued into real estate. Well, segued into advocating for other people's investments, and then finally into becoming licensed here. And then I was an individual agent for 8 years or so, and then I started my team in 2018, and I have a real estate team now. We have 17 licensees and 2 full-time people. I have an operations manager and a transaction coordinator or transaction manager.
17.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm so we operate in Southwest Washington and Northwest Oregon, so we do both. But it's true to say that about 75% of our business is on this side of the river.
Right.
Yeah. And the opera singing, that's an aside. It's a thing that I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me you went to school for opera singing, and I was gonna have her belt.
Oh, she.
I performed for 16 years in career. So that's like both profit and non-profit, and it just means, or paid and non-paid. So it just means I volunteered a lot in musicals. So I did musicals for, I think, 13 or 14 years, and then I segued into opera at the end. And I did a few, I was the lead singer for a few bands and whatever, but that's just stuff that I did on my own time. And I considered it a career at one point, making it a career, but that was, I didn't want to move to New York or LA, and that was kind of where you needed to be.
Probably more money in real estate.
And yeah, it's way more of a sure thing. Yeah. So, and there's really a half-life to all those things. You can only, it depends on the person, but your voice is a finite resource. So, but I enjoyed that immensely, and I enjoyed it immensely, and met my husband through that way in Capitol Opera Sacramento. We were both in the same production.
And so you did musicals?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did musicals for much longer than I did opera.
Okay.
I just finished with opera, but I did musicals for a lot of years. Yeah. So there were so many theater opportunities in and around Sacramento where I lived for a long time that, it was just, you had a ton of opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. I
told you she's impressive.
I had no idea there was this much behind this woman. That's insane. So you were a solo agent first, and then started the team. Mm-hmm. I started the team in 2018. You didn't start with 17 agents. You started
5.
Just 5. Okay.
Yeah.
4
4 agents. So myself plus 4 agents and a transaction coordinator. Or at that time, it was just an assistant, and not really a transaction coordinator. So we still outsourced to the brokerage I was with for that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I did start kind of hot off the presses with 4 other people and myself. Which I later found out was actually not that usual. I think usually you get an assistant, and then you kind of get an agent,
Maybe
and then you
one.
kind of, I really didn't, I thought I was starting small, and I later kind of laughed because I did, people were like, what on earth, you have a team just like that? I had no idea that I was doing anything bizarre.
So where do you find your team members? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so well, right now I'm with Keller Williams, Premier Partners in Vancouver, Washington, which I love. That's been just a great home for our team. And so, I benefit from the fact that they have this national brand, which is very focused heavy on, collaboration and
Education.
Training. Education is absolutely huge. And so I help to teach for, their Ignite series, which is for new agents coming on board. I also, will volunteer for various other opportunities. And then, they oftentimes had meet and greets where we could talk with people that are considering the industry, talk with people that are considering to start real estate. And so that's been a great place too, just to do that. Yeah.
And then a lot of your current agents have also brought in potential agents and new agents.
Yep. Yeah. So it's no secret, we incentivize our existing agents to help find the people that they get to work with, so they can maybe choose their friends and work with them. They can, meet people out in the world, maybe other agents, and they could, set up kind of a meet and greet with me. I will sit down for an hour and educate anyone who's interested in real estate. An interview with me is just more of like an informative session that we're going to let you know what is a day in the life, a week in the life of a realtor. What does that look like? What is the startup cost for doing it? It's really just making sure that people understand the industry. What is the daily work? And I think that's, I call it the HGTV effect, where people think that what the job is so quite different. They're like, presenting and having cocktails and it's a very different thing. I mean, we do get to go. Yeah, exactly. I love that
Which
show,
one's
actually.
going to renovate my house when I buy this one?
Yeah. When do we get to hang out on Magnolia Farms But yeah, that has given a lot of that, and what is it? Selling Sunset and all that kind of. So I don't really watch those shows. I used to love HGTV, but I don't have time to look at any of that anymore. But I just think that that has had a huge effect in glamorizing the industry. But that's not really what we do. And so there is the fun part. We all love to go look at homes. It's kind of like the open secret is that we all really are somewhat addicted to houses, and we love to go see them. That's true. It's the thing I miss the most about not representing buyers, really, because I'm largely out of production. It means I don't represent buyers or sellers that much myself anymore. It's mainly through my team. But we do love to go show homes, and there is that, you can get gussied up and do all that. But it's not really the main focus of what we do. It's a lot of sitting at a desk. It's like what you guys do. You're at a desk, you've got a list of people that you've ever talked to, you need to follow up with them, you need to make sure that you're representing their interests, you need to, problem solve. And so that's really what we do. But I will talk with anyone, and it's been really helpful. Keller Williams is probably the biggest way I recruit. And then on top of that, we recruit through the agents themselves. Mm-hmm. And they get to help choose who they work with. I think that's a lot of fun for them, and that works really well. Also, if they enjoy their job, that's very easy for them to go out and share.
So one thing that I've noticed about working with you, as opposed to any of the other agents that I've worked with and teams that I've worked with, is the amount of individual effort that you pour into each and every person on your team. Why do you do it? And just explain your why behind.
Why am I crazy? Yeah, no,
that's not what I'm saying.
I think all my friends think I'm my agent friends think I've certainly overcomplicated my life by going from being a successful individual agent to starting a team. I can say it's not for everyone, but I can also say any form of management in any industry is probably not for everyone. So I would just say that I went from really a big passion for helping individuals in having their goals or dreams come true by way of helping them buy or sell a home, to watching an individual experience success, sometimes for the first time in their life, through real estate as a job. And so mentoring others, I have been mentoring others in one way or another for at least 25, 30 years. That's just something about me wants to advocate for something I think another person could benefit from. And my mother was actually that way too. And maybe it's that teacher thing in the family. You know, there's several of us, and yeah. So we come by way of, it's almost like, I think a lot of us know something and we could help another, but we don't always trust what we know. And we think, oh, what if that's the wrong idea or a bad idea? I shouldn't just be advocating for something or giving advice to someone. And I have, I think, been raised with this thought that if I have knowledge that I think in the moment could help another person or could benefit them in some way, I do not have the right to keep it to myself. I am like duty bound to share that. That's me. And I guess it has to come with a little bit of like either trust internally or even like hubris to say that maybe what I'm saying is a good idea in any given moment. And I'm always willing to be wrong, but I have been an advocate and in that way for people for a really long time. So I've helped people get through navigating the U.S. college system, helped, every babysitter we ever had gotten, coached in some way by myself and my husband to just rise and be the best version of whatever it is that they could imagine, or maybe just imagine and dream bigger. And so, yeah, I mean, I've had parents of babysitters like have us for dinner years later, and I've attended graduations and nurse pinning ceremonies where they cry and go like, it's because of something you said, or because your husband helped me with my calculus homework after you got home from your date or whatever, when I was your babysitter, that now I have this degree. So this is something I have been doing and my husband has joined me on for a really long time. Like if we could make a difference for someone, I made a difference, and I was willing to pull out all the stops. Yes.
I've seen it just because we've worked together enough years now. I've seen you pull minimum wage employees out of another industry, and within 1 to 2 years, they're making 6-figure income.
100%, yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean,
yes.
and you're just you're pouring into them more than I've ever seen anybody pour into anybody. But you can see what it does. I mean, you can see the result within 1 to 2 years.
Yeah,
you're going from $40,000 a year to 100 in a brand new career.
If 40, yeah, if 40,
yeah.
I mean,
it's
really true
to see. I know the one. I don't want to say names here, but when we first started working together, the one that went back to Fred Meyer, went to teaching, and
Oh, totally, yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. Just watch what you did for him. Unbelievable. Yeah. Just unbelievable.
I love taking someone from what the status quo is and what they may hope they can do in real estate and taking them to something so much beyond their expectation.
And his confidence, watching it
they grow. Yes.
Over that year period, it was unbelievable to watch.
It's amazing, yes.
He became a totally different person.
Yeah, and I watched that a lot. So I don't know, my ultimate pay, I guess, for what I do and all what you say, I do train my team a lot. I do in-person training with them every Tuesday, every Thursday, so it's 2 to 4 hours. It just depends. And then, yes, I mentor them. I'm their managing broker, so it's every single deal, every single conversation that they're having. And we make sure that they never want for anything. They are to look like a rock star to their client, and they get to leverage everything I've ever learned or known in sales and in real estate, contract or psychology or otherwise, to be able to bring that to bear on helping that client, including every solution, everything. So I'm in every deal. It's just a matter of like how much. And it depends on the transaction and how new the agent is. But they also learn very quickly this way. But my ultimate pay for that, aside from, any income, is that I get to watch them, and in the eyes of their family and friends, completely transform or just really rise. And I get to watch their, original concept of themselves from when they join me to 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, just really explode and transform. Yeah, it's amazing. I just got a card yesterday from one of my team leads, agents who's been with me about 3 years. And, it made me cry. She literally like dropped it, gave it to me and said, open it later, and it was just unexpected. I had no idea that was going to occur. And I do get things like that. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I'll just get goosebumps or start crying talking about it because it's really amazing. But I don't, isn't there some old proverb about that? It's like, if you want to be happy for a day, go buy something. If you want to be happy for a month, go, give something or whatever. If you want to be happy for a lifetime, help another person. Help them in some way that is meaningful. So it is incredible. And there is, just like when we sell a home to a buyer, there is this downwind, effect of everyone in their family, their kids or whatever, are benefiting from this new homestead that they've created. When an agent becomes more successful and produces money at a higher income and gets, confidence at a higher level, it affects everyone. I have an agent on my team who has 3 little girls and, was doing DoorDash, and now literally made $15,000 or $17,000 take home last month in a hard year, quote unquote, for 2023. And that's dramatic.
That would have been a lot of delivered Chinese food to make that much money.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would have. No, but it's like, it's dramatic,
Right.
It gave her power in her life.
She's going to pass that power on to somebody else.
To all 3 of her little girls who go, whoa, mommy's kind of a
baller. Yeah.
Right?
I hate to use sports analogies, but they have these coaching trees where, you have like this one really successful coach, and he creates 10 different coaches off of that, and they call it the coaching tree, where and you can point to almost every successful NFL head coach, and they all came off of 1 or 2 different coaching trees from 20, 30 years ago.
Yep. And I utilize coaching too. I think there's a place in so many aspects of our lives for that kind of thing. And that trickle down effect, I think, is incredibly powerful. And I'll live my whole life and never know in what way that continued to impact someone. Same thing with raising my children. I will pass from this lifetime and never know who else got affected by something I said or did.
Right.
My mother has passed from this lifetime, and I'm still passing around her words of wisdom. That, she actually said to me years ago that, your children are your only true immortality. That and the words you say to others. And I think those things are so true.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
It is.
So retention, your team members, like 17, they're probably clamoring to get on your team and they don't leave, right?
I would love to say retention is, super, super long, but the real thing in the industry is that if you can keep agents for 2 years or more, you're doing a really good job. So I'm doing a really good job. Yeah. I have had agents for longer, but sometimes there's changes in their life. They have a child, whatever. But yeah, I am still actively recruiting too, because we definitely want to push to 20 or more within the next 6 months. And so we're still in a rapid growth phase. And part of that is everything I've done this last year to build market share and to grow and to stabilize. So this year has been a whole lot of that behind the scenes.
So have you ever run into somebody wherever you happen to be and just like you're talking to them for a little bit and you're like, you would be really good at real estate? That's happened? I'm sure that's happened.
In Macy's at the makeup counter 6 weeks ago. She's now one of my newest agents in training. Absolutely fabulous. Very excited to bring her aboard. She's incredibly excited. She's another bilingual agent that I'll be bringing on board. She speaks Spanish and English.
Right.
Yeah. She's been to many meetings.
The service industry, I always tell everybody, the service industry, if you are successful in the service industry, like as a server or in retail, like a makeup counter or something like that, you're so in tune with the client and their needs and their wants that it makes you really good at real estate, because you have to have that kind of innate ability to absorb what that client is looking for,
Yeah,
And
you've got to, I always say in interviews and in informational interviews, there are 2 things that I hire for, and I actually will fire for these. And that is genuine kindness. You have to be genuinely kind because I get to I'm in the unique position to get to choose who it is I work with. As the company owner, that's like, when you pay the bills, oddly, you get to do that. But number one, I get to choose who I work with. And so, and I get to choose who our clients are going to be served by. And so genuine kindness, that is it. You've got to be a genuinely kind person. If you're a genuinely kind person and you have the ability to speak, then you have the ability to do exactly what you just said, which is you can live in their shoes.
Yep.
You can live in another person's shoes. You can hear them in a way that they're not used to being heard in their everyday life. And certainly not by necessarily places they're going to buy stuff. And you can serve them at a really higher level. And then the second one is no ego, because I cannot inflict someone with ego on my clients, and I cannot train a person with ego. I'm always learning. We all have to be receptive constantly to new knowledge.
100%.
And we can never be thinking we're the expert of anything. And so that, that goes to that as well. So yeah, I definitely do. So I've found, a lot of service industries. So I've had, prior servers. I've had people who worked at grocery stores. I've had people that were in casinos. Yeah. I've had people that have worked in retail. So many different, also moms, like parents, because really they're caring for humans on a regular daily basis. They're also incredible at multitasking. So in fact, I kind of, as a female, I love the fact that real estate is a place where females can come and rise and have no cap on them. And it's literally an even playing field. And when I was in the corporate world in my 20s as a young female, it kind of didn't matter how smart I was, because that's not what was being, the focus.
Rated, yeah.
Yeah, and rated, or whatever you want to call it. I'll just give you the story that I was sitting next to my assistant, who was the assistant for our, advertising arm of Infinity Broadcasting. And I had taken them with me to meet with some, a particularly, big meeting that we were going to do for this advertiser. I don't know if it was waste management for the West Coast or whatever it was, Gallo Wines or something. And I had gotten the contract, and I had done all the hard work for 6 months to get that meeting. And then I go to sit in front of them, and I've got, these, two company, CEO, CFO, whatever, on one side of the table, and myself and my assistant on the other. And every time I asked a question, they would look at me, acknowledge the question, look over at my assistant, and answer. Because the assistant sitting next to me was a male.
Wow.
And this happened not once. It happened like 8 times in this 30-minute meeting. And it's the kind of thing you don't forget if you're the one that happened to. Yeah. That kind of lack of agency as a young female, I experienced quite a bit. I love the fact that in real estate, you can have full agency. And in fact, it's not just about whether you're, female or not, but in fact, I have younger males who are, entering this industry. They're brilliant people and they're hardworking. They just need to be given a chance, and this industry will let them in, and then they can do the hard work and win over the clients. And then I have, one of my newest agents is, retired from another, 18 years in another career and whatnot. And so, like I say, my team should represent the world around me. My team should represent our clients. And whether that's young, old, every color, it doesn't matter. Trilingual, bilingual, we need to represent the population around us, because then that means we can better serve the population around us, and we can understand what their concerns are better, because we have those concerns in our own team.
And you have a lot of younger agents on your team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I have from age 19 on up, but I think I'm on up to 65 or so. Okay. And so it's, there's actually a broad spread, but I don't, for me, like I said, none of that matters. You can do this industry. Luckily, it's not like hard work with your hands. You can do this industry at any age and be, really effective. I first entered in corporate sales when I was 19. And people had no idea that I was 19. They just had no idea. And so I don't think that kind of thing matters. I think you can be anyone and come from any background, and you can really thrive in sales, but you can thrive also in real estate.
Right.
But you've got to be willing to work hard. You have to, if you're on my team, you have to be willing to sit through the trainings. You have to be willing to level up your contract knowledge. You have to be willing to level up your mortgage knowledge. You have to be willing to do all those things, because then you are a value to your client and not like a danger to your client, because you can be either one.
And, you know, what's weird about real estate, it's always been kind of a mixed melting pot of people from different backgrounds that come in. When I got into working with real estate agents 15 years ago, I was talking to one, and he had something weird on his desk, and I was like, what is that? Well, it's from when I was a dentist. I was like, you were a dentist?
Yeah.
And now you're a real estate agent? He's like, yeah, I got tired of teeth, tired of sticking my hands in people's mouths, and so I decided to sell real estate instead. You know, and so just like this weird melting pot of people that all came together. I mean, dentists, doctors,
A lot of retired sports athletes.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. Teachers, a lot of teachers. I know a lot of teachers who just decided, you know what, I don't want to teach anymore.
I'm done with it. Yeah. And I've seen the reverse happen too, where they come in and out of the real estate industry, and then they eventually go, back into like a teaching space or something like that, or into something else. But I think that's healthy. I think we can change what we do in our lives, but there are a fair amount of people for whom this is their desired dream post-retirement occupation. And I think it's really cool that you can jump in and do that. A lot of people become pocket investors as well.
You should. Mm-hmm. If you work in this industry, you should become an investor.
Yeah. And that's for some people like me included, it can be a segue into the industry where you start wanting to acquire a few rentals or something like that. And then you understand the value of real estate. And like for me, I had kind of a mixture of realtors, and I saw what worked and what didn't for me as a client. Right. And my goal was to take those things that worked and get rid of those things that didn't, and then add everything that I could think of to add.
And then you have something to pass off to your clients to counsel them on to replicate your success at the same level.
Yeah, one of our team mottos is service with excellence, and it's something that just came about years ago because people would say it about me. They'd put it on a review or something like that. And so I started using it as my signature, like my tagline, and then it became our team motto. But the whole point is that we really strive to mean it and to embody that all the time. So I'm making sure I bring excellence to my team in knowledge, in training, and incredible lenders like Devon. We want to bring excellence to our clients. And if I bring excellent training and tools to my team, and I'm constantly pivoting or retooling or whatever's necessary, and I have people like Devon who will do the same, and Cardinal that will do the same, then we can level up what we offer, and we can provide literally service with excellence. What value additionally can we add? Right. That's always what I'm looking for.
That takes it to a whole different level. It comes back to the well done is always better than well said, right?
Yeah.
The
proof is in the pudding, right? Yeah, I mean, when people are done with a transaction, they should, whether the transaction had difficulties or not, they should appreciate us just as much, if not more, than they did when they ever first met my agent in an open house or whatever that is. It should not ever be the opposite.
Right. So, weird market we're in, kind of transitioning. Is this the weirdest, craziest, kookiest market that you've seen?
I mean, I think the 2008 recession was definitely kookier, and I was there as an investor. That was interesting to see it. And then also to be part of the very meteoric sort of rise through 12, 13, 14, and 15 of, 14, 15% a year in property year over year valuation gain and just an incredible rush to purchase everything, while some sellers were still not even able to make back what they'd paid for the home in '08.
Right.
I know my last seller that I sold a home for, I think it was in like 2014 or 2015, before he finally was able to sell at a price that made back that peak price that he had paid in '07, or I think it was '08 that they had purchased it.
7 years.
Yeah, and it was a home on property, so fair warning, it was something that was going to take longer to appreciate, because of the uniqueness of it. But it took that long for them to see to get out and not be upside down at all in equity. Wow. And that was the last one. And I remember thinking of that as like a really positive turning point, that okay, it's done. Like we're done.
Yeah, that's behind us now.
That's behind us. And if this property made it up and out, of its valuation, then we're done. Like I understood that was unique and a difficult one. Right. Everyone else kind of made it out by 2012, 2013. Mm-hmm. But it is a unique market right now. I do think that we are uniquely positioned to capture whatever business we can as a team. And I know there are people this year that are having a good year. Mm-hmm. My team had a very solid year during the pandemic, as anyway so many realtors did. But then there were some that kind of took a pause right when it started, and they did not do okay that year. And so I think really it's what you do with it, and how do you pivot, and how do you retool. My company is small enough that I'm constantly looking at stats, because that's what I was trained to do when I used to help companies forward their goals. And using advertising, I always looked at stats. So I look at stats, I know the numbers all the time. And so I'm able to put more money over here because this is where clients are coming from, and literally pivot our own advertising, create new opportunities for the agents. I have what I call like multiple legs of the table. I've always believed in this, whether it was a banner year like 2021 or not. I always wanted multiple legs of the table. And so I have never had just one or two main sources of business that I nurtured. I've always looked for multiple sources of business, and then I'm always looking for more or different ones, because when something is robust, there may be a year when it's not. So for example, this year, what I will say it's working well for our team is Sphere. So that is very interesting. But what used to be a very lead, like phone lead or internet lead dominant business, we now have a Sphere dominant business. And then now we're starting to see where open houses and things are also coming up more and more. And I think it's because the people that know our agents personally are more likely to listen to them 100%. At a level that allows that individual buyer or seller to counteract what the national news has been just slamming them with for a year and a half, which is interest rates are insane. You are insane. House prices are insane. And you are insane if you buy or sell anything.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Because in what the news, I don't know, first of all, just never realizes is that if you are bashing buyers, you are bashing sellers, because in order to leave one house, you got to go find another one in most cases.
Unless you're going to live in a tent.
There you go.
Or a trailer.
Right. Yeah. So you can't, if you're bashing one, you're bashing the other always, because people are going to leapfrog from one to another. But yeah, I think it's that personal touch that someone, they're willing to listen for longer. And if the agent can bend their ear for long enough, as Devon knows, we can educate them. If we can educate them, we can inspire them and help them.
And they can refer you.
Yes, that too. Yes, and they can refer us. But really, they can meet their home goals. So right now, you have people concerned about buying because they're concerned that house prices are high. We have no indication right now that house prices would decrease in our area for any particular reason at all, because we don't have enough homes to meet demand. But where we used to have 10 buyers for every home in Southwest Washington, maybe we have 4. And so, but that still makes it a seller's market. So can you tell me why would home prices go down? I can't figure the logic on that.
if you overprice a house and you have to reduce it, then of course,
Right.
people
But that's
are
not a
going
price
to
But we're
see
talking
that,
about
that's not
a
price
right, but
reduction.
yeah, and we're
That's
not talking
totally
about
different.
a loss year on year in valuation. And this is what many people confuse in the news. They think that the news told me that home prices are dropping this year, or they dropped last year relative to this year. What they meant, or what they had explained in most cases, is that the rate at which a home went from $100,000 home last year to $110,000 home next year dropped.
Right.
So maybe instead of a 10% annual appreciation, which I just described, they might have, a 4 or 7% annual appreciation. And so those rates have dropped. That's true. But what the average person, consumer, hears is, oh no, $100,000 home that someone bought last year is now only worth $98 or $92 or $1,000.
Yep.
And we better not buy in that. Or in fact, if that's happening, we better wait, because that means we can get ourselves a $100,000 house next year or in 6 months for $150 or whatever,
Yeah.
or 50,000.
So one of the things that gets me is when people are like 2 years ago, you'd list a home at $500. By the time it sold, it'd be worth $5.25. So they put it up at $5.25. That doesn't mean it was worth it when they listed it. So when people are still trying to do that, and they've got to reduce it from $5.25 to $5, that's not a price reduction. You're just bringing it back to where you should have put it in the first place.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it looks like a reduction because on the MLS it says I reduced the price. Mm-hmm. But it's not. You overpriced it to begin with. Mm-hmm. You're bringing it back to reality. Mm-hmm. That to me is not a price reduction.
You're right.
That's just getting reasonable.
It's not. Well, it's not loss of market value.
It's not.
No, I will 100% agree with you on that, and also add, which is that sellers have very much wanted to see or hoped to see these high rates of year-on-year appreciation on into the end of last year and all through this year, and so they've been very, very slow to consider the price that their home is at currently, and they have wanted us to price up everything we list. And we don't set the price. People think realtors set the price. We have no right to do that. We can only educate a seller. And as I tell every seller, I work for you ultimately. Here is my here are the stats. This is what I believe you should be priced at, given the features of your home and the comps that I brought. But I work for you. So ultimately, what do you need or want to price the house at? And here are the pros and cons of that discussion. And that's all we can do. We have no right to price, just like we have no right to tell them how much commission to offer a buyer's agent or anything like that.
Or what offer to accept.
Or what offer to accept or not. Right. Yeah. So we have no right to do those things. So it's, it's a free market. Sellers have free will. And so it's true what Devon is saying, that if you price in a certain way and it's already above the market, and then you have to adjust it because it's sitting, and the seller is going, wow, I still wanted to move to Montana, if we can hurry up and do that, then you end up bringing that price down. So there are considerations like that. Yeah. But otherwise, this year, it has been a challenging year. I think from teams on down to individual agents, it's been a challenging year. Yeah.
I think there's still opportunities out there for buyers. Mm-hmm. The resounding message that I hear, especially if you watch the news, they're like, you shouldn't buy a home. You shouldn't buy a home. Mm-hmm. Dave Ramsey is like, don't buy a home right now. Yeah. And I think I'm on the other side of the fence on that one. I think the moment interest rates drop by 1%, mm-hmm. there's going to be 10,000 people lined up at that house. Yeah. And you're not going to be able to get that house for $550 now. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to pay $600 for it.
But what did they do when they couldn't afford for a while? They all graciously bowed out and went and rented for a year. Well, guess what? That year lease is coming up. Mm-hmm. What are they going to do? Mm-hmm. They're going to come back and try it again. It's going to move. If it's better market, they're buyers. Mm-hmm. So all the people that were on the sidelines, they're still there. Mm-hmm. They're still employed. They just rented for a year. Mm-hmm. So they're all coming back. We got to remember that. They're still there. Yeah. The rental market picked up a lot of those. Mm-hmm. That's temporary. These are still buyers. Mm-hmm.
Even in the pandemic, I found it interesting that 85% of people who were employed at the start of the pandemic never had an interruption in a meaningful interruption in employment during that time. They still had their jobs. That's why our industry did so well, because they couldn't run off and spend their money any other way. And they found that, a couple tax returns later, they yes, exactly. But they, if they wanted to be a consumer, they could still go inside of a house because we were declared
essential.
And so that, when people are forced to kind of wait and save a little bit, they become better buyers. I definitely believe right now is an excellent opportunity for buyers. Personally, all my private investments, I tend to buy them in the fall when there's not as much inventory, yes, but there's also not as many buyers. And so it's also a time when my husband and I are finally free at the same time, maybe over Thanksgiving weekend or Christmas holidays, where we could actually go out a couple days in a row, look at houses and make decisions. And we could, not lowball a seller exactly, but we could maybe get a good deal, get some movement on the listing price. And so right now, actually, for our buyers, this is incredible. This is an incredible opportunity. And we've been explaining that to them. We closed a deal 2 weeks ago or so. There were $25,000 in concessions for the buyer. On like a $500,000 purchase or $4. It was incredible. They were able to buy, do rate buy down, do all kinds of, stuff that they were able to do behind the scenes with that. And they were walking into it in a very favorable situation. And I think they had an additional amount that was taken off the purchase price just coming in, or some repairs. All of our buyers this year, or most of our buyers this year, have been able to get repairs made on the home. They've been able to have, plenty of time to do their inspections. They've been able to, get price reductions either coming into the transaction. Almost all of them have been able to get the seller paid closing costs. But a year and a half ago, before the 3/4 point rate increase, we could not do many of those things. And it was very standard that not only would they not have a credit to closing costs, and they would not get as many repairs. They might be offering to buy a house as is. They might have a very reduced inspection period, and then so there was a lot of pressure on them. And then on top of that, they would be paying over list price, $20,000, $40,000, $60,000 in many cases. And then in addition, they would have to come with extra cash at closing,
more money, yep.
Really draining their savings or tapping into 401k or whatever, just to cure the deal, because that appraisal might come in low. And so just all of these things made extra out of pocket for buyers right now. We're not dealing with any of that. And yes, you're going to have a higher rate, and yes, that creates an additional burden on your monthly payment. But, and nobody has a crystal ball about when rates are going to come down, and you guys can talk to all this stuff as lenders. But, it's an opportunity for them to get into a house in a way that doesn't fluctuate over time, which is what you pay. If you walk in on a $400,000 house and you're able to get it for $380,000 and get another $10,000 towards your closing costs and get the thing for $370,000 all told, that is a $30,000 reduction. If you have to walk in a more robust climate with lower interest rates and pay $450,000 for the same house, that's a $70,000 difference. And that you cannot fix it later with an interest rate change or mortgage refinance. So I think that is really
getting the home
fascinating.
cheaper is obviously the better choice.
It is, because that's a forever thing.
High interest rates are short term, which they've always been cyclical since I've seen it. I mean, like you said, we don't know when it's going to come down, but all the industry experts right now, as of this minute, who knows what's going to come in tomorrow? But as of right now, they're thinking Q2.
Election.
Things are going to start slowing down a little bit. We got an election year coming up too. Yep.
Everyone's talking about that. So, because everyone who's at bat is hoping to look good, and the incumbent will do what they can. So if you're a buyer
on the fence, like the wintertime, I bought my house in the wintertime, by the way. In fact, we signed our offer. We sent our offer in on Super Bowl Sunday. I left at halftime in the middle of the Super Bowl party. We went and made an offer on our house. And that's what won us the offer, because they were like, wow, Super Bowl Sunday, and they're like putting it off. Like, they want this house bad. Okay, let's go.
Wow.
And so like winter, I remember my real estate agent at the time telling me like wintertime's the best time because you won't have 5 other people looking at the same house. You might have 1 or 2. So we only have to beat out 1 or 2 other people instead of 5 other people. So do it in the wintertime. Do you still decorate your house? If you're selling your house in Christmas time, I always wondered that. Like if you put your house up for sale, do you still decorate it? You still put the tree up?
Honestly, if people are living there, we encourage them to do all that stuff because we want them to enjoy their holidays, and we don't want them to feel like they're giving up too much to go through the process. Right now, market times are longer, and everything you just said is one of the reasons that I encourage all my sellers to stay on market over the holidays. I don't believe in this idea of like pull it off market and go back in the spring. I understand the pros and cons of that. But generally speaking, there are buyers every month of the year.
Yep.
There are buyers in every market. There are people who have to move, or they're just getting married, or whatever reason they have. Yeah, whatever it is. That's funny. Whatever it is. But there are always reasons for buyers. And, you have so much less competition, especially if your house has been sitting. And maybe you're stuck on a certain price. If it's been sitting and you're stuck and you have to sell it for X amount, probably you should really be on market over the holidays, or I should say over the winter, because you're going to have some buyers that are going to, see your house as maybe the best one that week. I always talk about like as a basket of apples, we all go choose our apples at the supermarket. And when there's like 5 apples left, which may happen today because Thanksgiving is coming or whatever. When there's 5 apples left, you're kind of like, well, okay, these 2 have less spots on them, so I will buy them, right? And so not to say my sellers' homes have spots on them, but it is to say that when your comparison is not making you look good on any given market week, and every single week is different because there's a different basket of homes available on every week, then that could be the week for you. So I think it's good for sellers. I think it's good for buyers. We can list at any time.
Right. Days on market's up right now, I take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It has been all year, and it was last fall as well. So it's either price to market and see if you can drum up some business quickly, or you're looking at probably having a little bit longer market time, and you may end up having to deal with a price drop or 2. So we give sellers all their options. I give sellers all their options. Right. I give them the pros and cons of every both of those possibilities. And we have seen multiple offers a number of times this fall, especially. So in 2023, my team has had a number of listings that we've had 2 to 4 offers in the first weekend.
So it depends on a lot of
it depends
on
where it is. It depends on the price. Yeah, how it presents, where it's located, that entry level price, everything.
So I mentioned Portland. You're licensed in Oregon as well?
Yep.
Right?
I'm a principal broker in Oregon, managing broker in Washington. So my team operates in both.
Are you seeing the migration over to this side? You are.
Several years, yeah.
Okay.
We hear everything. Tax a lot. We hear tax a lot because obviously if they can not have state tax. We also look into price of housing, which has been, for 5 to 7 years, we have been the better deal because Portland shot up rather quickly after the recovery.
I heard that it's almost getting to the point where
probably
it's all pretty balanced.
Disparity goes away, just like in the stock market. After a while, all the good stuff is, all the hot deals are bought up, and then the hot deals don't exist anymore. Yeah, that's why arbitrage is, right. I got some work out of that international business degree that I have, but yeah, that's why it doesn't really work. After a while, it's it's like the stock market. Something's a great deal, and then everyone buys it up, and all of a sudden, in the same day, it's not a great deal anymore. Right. But yeah, so that may be the case, and we still do talk. Cowlitz County for that, right? Kelso, Longview still is more affordable. So, but we have seen people moving for schools. We've seen them moving for tax reasons. We've seen them moving for property tax reasons because our property taxes were and can be lower just depending on the area. And then we've also seen them moving quite a lot, I would say the majority, for affordability and schools. It tends to be one of the two. Like, I can get that extra bathroom if I move up here. And I've also had people move for traffic.
Vancouver's not the same Vancouver that it was. How long have you lived in Vancouver, by the way?
So I live in Woodland. We've been in the area for 14 years.
Okay.
The Pacific Northwest, yeah.
So you've watched the transformation of
Massive.
Vancouver.
Huge. Incredible.
In Southwest Washington as a whole.
Yes.
I remember when Ridgefield was like, people didn't even know where Ridgefield was. They were like, where's Ridgefield again? They're like, yeah, it's up there by the
It seemed like it was in farm country. Yeah.
Yeah, everything's 5 acres and yeah.
Oh yeah, we went kayaking up there a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's down there. And now, like you say, Ridgefield. Everybody knows where Ridgefield is.
Yes.
So you've watched this transformation of Southwest Washington, like the downtown area. We have this magnificent
Incredible.
downtown area.
Incredible.
And
Incredible.
I think what happens is people
Gorgeous,
are coming
actually.
over to this side of the river, maybe for the casino, maybe for the amphitheater, maybe for the restaurants or something.
Yeah, the new Pearl downtown.
Yeah, but they drive over, and what I'm hearing from people in Portland when they come over here, they're like, "Oh, this isn't the same Vancouver that it was like 10 years ago."
It was Vantucky when I was growing up. That's what people we nicknamed it.
I've heard the term a lot, yeah.
Yeah, well, you're in
Less
Vantucky.
nowadays.
You don't hear that anymore.
Nope.
Not at all. It's
No.
gone.
No, it's become so cosmopolitan and so nice. It's great. It's harder for some homeowners because the tax base has gone up and things like that.
sure.
But my team and I were talking yesterday in a training actually about neighborhoods and that kind of stuff. And I said, if someone comes to ask me what is a good neighborhood, a bad neighborhood, or what is a bad neighborhood in Vancouver, I just really couldn't say. Or what is a bad school, or this kind of idea of that. First of all, I have an argument around that idea, and I did in Texas as well. This idea, good neighborhood, bad neighborhood. Like, yes, pull the
Compared
crime.
to what?
Yeah, pull the crime statistics and all that. But I mean, okay, what do I mean by that? As an example, a girlfriend of mine back in Texas bought. Was looking at homes and was comparing different neighborhoods and schools and whatnot. And she ended up in a neighborhood that she thought she could get more house for the money. So she liked that, but she was worried about the schools. And actually what happened is, because she was a really dedicated mom, and yes, the schools had quite a mix of, people that were doing, I guess, not as well as others, her son ended up rising and was just like, getting all the, student awards and this kind of stuff, because she was very deeply involved in his education. And I said, you just did your son this huge favor. So yes, you were so worried you were putting him in a school that maybe wasn't bad, but the teachers that she had were great. And in fact, the kid was thriving. And so, security-wise, the campus was okay. And I would say that would be different. But so this idea of like living in, and also they walked into some equity, and now, their neighborhood has changed, and now they have tons of equity. So there were several benefits to her buying in an area that she could get more for her money, but she was a little nervous about in the beginning. And so I always tell people, whether you start with whatever that is, you can do a stepping stone. But yeah, Vancouver's change has been really extraordinary. And I cannot say that there are any areas of Vancouver that I would avoid or think was unsafe or something like that.
I mean, if you look at some of the crime statistics to like Baltimore, Maryland, or something like that over there, I mean, there's just some areas that, you just don't go in after dark.
There's
I don't think
places
we
in
have
Portland.
any of those.
There's places in Portland
there are
that
some
I don't
places
go
in
to
Portland.
after
Yeah.
dark.
But
There
I
were
don't think
places
there
in
are any of
Houston
those
for
in
sure.
Vancouver.
Yeah, I don't feel uncomfortable anywhere in
I don't
Vancouver.
either.
So it's really changed a lot. It's been amazing to see. It's been amazing to see the investment and the homeowners in our area. It's paid off extraordinarily. And that just goes to the other thing. Listen to the messaging. Over time, values go up. Generally speaking, over any 10, 15, 20, 100-year period of time when you're talking about property. And over time, things become more expensive. And so if anyone is on the fence about buying or whatever that is, like I say, stop enriching your landlord. Get
my
out
favorite
there.
line about that?
Yeah.
It's not timing the market, it's time in the market.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I loved that one
Yeah.
when I heard that. It really
Time
resonated
in the
with
market,
me.
yeah.
Yeah, because everyone wants to time it. I want to time the market.
You can't time the stock market
You're not
either.
going to time it.
No.
Well, that's where I got that from.
Wait,
but it's totally applicable here.
It really is.
You can't
just-
time the stock market?
Good luck.
We
Sorry,
can
Larry.
use AI to
Yeah,
time the
yeah.
market,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, and then everyone else will, and then the arbitrage will be gone overnight. And by the time you heard about it, no, I mean, there are people who make that their goal in daily life. But
Right.
no, what I tell people is, I do not believe that there is a specific wrong time to buy real estate, especially if you're going to live in it,
Yeah.
as your home, because you have all those tax advantages. There's so many things that you're getting that you cannot and will not get if you don't do that. You will start, pouring wealth into yourselves versus pouring it into your landlord. And while I am a landlord and I really do appreciate my tenants, even it's just, if a person can break that chain and get out of that, they need to do that as soon as possible. And then but what I will say is there are arguably some times that would not make sense to sell. Mm-hmm. That's all. Mm-hmm. And generally speaking, if you look, the times that you wouldn't necessarily want to sell, you can usually rent very well. Especially because now. Rental vacancies tend to be quite low when it is, a poor market for sellers and things like that. We have found that over the years with the rentals we've had, and we've noticed that, if you're in a buyer's market, you tend not to have rental rates that are particularly low as well, which is interesting. So you can rent instead, which is what I did. When we left Houston in 2010, it was not the right time to sell our home. We were not getting what we believed we should be getting for the home. And so instead, we refinanced our home. We used that money to go and purchase a home here.
Buy your castle.
Yeah, I love it. Which I bought as a short sale, and it took me 10 months to buy. It was a whole.
She literally has. Not literally,
it was a basket case. I had to use.
Castle.
Okay, and I used you'll have me singing opera, and people think that I live in a castle, but
it is.
It's a 203. It's a really unique home, that's for sure.
Very cool.
But we used a 203K actually to buy that home, and. We then held on to our home in Texas. We rented it out for a very reasonable amount that covered our mortgage, all of our expense there. And we did that for 8 years and sold the house for good money. And that goes back to something else about interest rates. I bought my first home in 2001 and our rate was 8.5%. I would make that decision over and over and over again all day long, 100%, no question. Number one, we had our boys there. They were little. They enjoyed their home. They enjoyed their neighborhood. They enjoyed their school. And then, we were able to, have that experience of being homeowners. We were able to, literally my husband, who's an engineer, has a spreadsheet, because he loves spreadsheets, of all the money he got back over the years, recaptured in his own W-2 income through that mortgage interest rate tax deduction. Then he looked at the valuation over time. We then obviously were able to use it like a cash machine, pull money out of it to get an even better, more expensive house years later that became and is our dream home. And then we were able to sell that home after having someone else pay that mortgage for a while and even recapture some additional, income based on it being a rental. And then we were able to sell it for, I think, two times what we paid for it after having paid it down for 18 years. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Well, we then turned that money into buying, we did a 1031 exchange actually and turned that into something else. So this stepping stone version starts with one home. And it doesn't matter. I mean, we did refinance ours a couple times, but we didn't jump and refinance it the first time interest rates went down. Again, there was a spreadsheet for that. Like if we're going to live there for 10 more years and the interest rate goes down by 0.5%, whatever, should we pay the $6,000 to refinance? So there was this math discussion that took place in our household. And by the way, Devon is great at this stuff. So I always tell people, I'm not going to do the math discussion with you on that. I'm going to send them to Devon because Devon can sit there and crunch the numbers and go, this is what you should do. This is when it makes sense for you to refi or not refi. And I'm calling you out, Devon, because you are such a pivotal and important part of my team's success.
Well,
we cannot and could not be where we are and giving the offering that we do to our agents of the training, the expertise, the support, and what they can then promise and offer to their clients if we didn't have you and if we didn't have Cardinal and programs like this and everything you guys are up to is extraordinary.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to add is, and touch on this, tell me what you think. and we got to wrap up soon. I know we're getting past our hour, but we're in a zone. I want to keep going for a second. So, homeownership, what did it do to your self-esteem?
Oh.
You know what I mean? So like when I first became a homeowner, the difference between renting and buying a home, it was incredible. An effect that I had no idea was coming.
Yeah.
That it just elevated me to this. I'm adulting. I'm doing this right. I'm doing it well. And
it is so true.
It pushed me in a new direction, which is weird. It's intangible.
Yeah.
But becoming a homeowner did so much to my self-worth.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that?
It really, in a sense, legitimizes your upward mobility in our society. You know, it's something like that. You are so right. Yeah. And we had, my husband had a great job. We were going to be having kids. I had just finished my degree and all this kind of stuff. And I had already had at that point, one or two careers in essence, and then was, going to take a break. And we had all the math discussions, if you have a house, then you have maintenance and deferred maintenance and all this kind of stuff. But there was this thing of owning an asset. Mm-hmm. Because literally all you got to do is walk in with a down payment, or if you have a down payment assistance program, you don't even need that. And someone will give you a home, and you just have to promise to make payments much like you do if you rent. Mm-hmm. And then you will get tax money back. It's unbelievable. The government, like I told my team yesterday, is actually a silent investor they're a silent partner with you on some things that they want society to do. Part of it is, one of those things is homeownership and homesteading a home, being where you live, because they know that will stabilize neighborhoods, it stabilizes tax base, it stabilizes families, schools, which is that tax base thing. It's unbelievable what it does. But yes, it does that other thing for your self-esteem. And I think it's that you are securing your place in the American dream of whatever decades and generations before you. And one of the biggest things I love about not only having my agents, but watching them take their friends and family and turn them into homeowners, many of them for the first time in their entire lineage in this country.
Yeah, yeah.
People used to ask me, what do you think about being a real estate agent when I first became an agent? And I'd say, they're like, is it crazy? Is it a lot of work? Is it whatever? And I said, oh my God, I get goosebumps 2 to 4 times a month because I'm giving a gift basket or a key to someone or scissors to cut the ribbon, to open their front door, and they are crying. It's unbelievable. Because it's hit them. It's probably what you're very much talking about has hit them in that moment. Mm-hmm. And they realize they just joined they secured their legitimate spot in the American dream. And yes, that didn't work out for a whole lot of people in 2008. But I would argue if they had not even had a house to potentially foreclose on or whatever, they were just renting anyway. And they didn't lose that thing because they didn't have something to lose.
But when they did lose it, at least they tasted it, and now they know what they want again.
Yes.
And it's going to motivate you to push you back to 2012, 13, 14 to do it again when you can.
Didn't you wish, this is a cool question, didn't you wish that when you did become a homeowner that you had done it sooner?
100%.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So my sister, she bought her very first house right at 2020, like February 2020, before everything shut down. Wow. And I remember telling her, like, you got in, like if it was 2 months later, you would not have been able to buy a house. And the discussion I had with her at the time, she was like, well, I'm 60 years old. If I get a 30-year mortgage, I'm going to be paying on it until I'm 90 years old. I'm like, theoretically, yes. But it doesn't work that way. So the way I explained it was, your house is paying you to live there. Like you're going to move in, you're going to pay this much for it, and then within a year it's going to be worth this much. So theoretically, your house is paying you $1,000 a month to live there. And she was like, she didn't understand it that way, but the way that she looked at it was, I'm on the hook for 30 years, like a car loan, almost like a car loan. Like no. complete opposite, and you're never too old to buy your first house. So at 59 years old, she bought her very first house. And I remember helping her move in to that house and just seeing like this overwhelming sense of gratification on her face.
Exactly.
Just like, we've been living in an apartment. And I said, what's the one thing that you, like, if you knew 20 years ago what you know now, what would you do? And she was like, I would tell myself, like, get off your butt and go do it. Because we didn't think it was possible until somebody said, it is possible. Like, oh, yeah, it pencils out. We can do this. And she was like, we can? Yeah. Well, let's go look at these houses over here. Boom. Got an offer done. And so seeing that, and now she's a homeowner. And it's funny because like every time I go over, like she's like, my house has gone up like $150,000 in value since we moved in, type of thing. And she's like, the house down the street, she's so in tune with the real estate market now. Like, the house down the street sold for $550 last week, like that means ours is probably worth about
It's like watching someone that just bought stocks, in the stock. They got their first set of mutual funds or whatever it is.
Yep.
And my husband still loves to this day to watch our home values. Of course, he watches them on Zillow, and I'm constantly reminding him that those are both historically and, like I like to say, hysterically incorrect. So, what's incredible, that the thought that came across when you were talking about your sister is that here's how it'll really work. At a certain point, she may not be gaining enough income to afford the life that she needs or wants to have. That house will be the very cash machine through like a reverse mortgage or through a sale that allows her, or a refinance that allows her to maintain,
the standard of living.
A standard of living.
It's
basic
a
security. It's
Becomes
a lifeboat. Yeah.
It's done my family well. Like, my dad is not a savvy investor. He's just a hoarder. And so every house he bought 2 before the one they're in now. He just can't sell them because he's just one of those guys like, fine, I can't sell it. Why would I sell it?
Yeah.
So, but that's just how he grew up. So that house and the condo and the house he has now, they saved his bacon. He got to retire early, for one. They've done cash out refis for some medical stuff. They've done another cash out refi on another one of them for like roof and stuff that was going wrong on their current house. These things they've bailed them out so many times, and they're flop houses. I mean, I've lived there, my brothers lived there, my friends have lived there. Like these, the rental has been used and taken advantage of so many times. Currently, my brother-in-law lives in one of them. You know what I mean? I mean, we've used these forever. So, getting rentals, yes, but having the home and then getting another one if you can, I just don't see why anybody who has the ability to do it wouldn't do it. I just can't figure out a reason.
It comes down to education, and we all as an industry have to keep working harder to educate millennials and generations that have come since in why this is such a critical part of the American experience and why they should be eager to capture their portion of it. But they have been very shy to buy. We knew about the millennials already 5 years ago that they had acquired more savings than any generation since the greatest generation per capita per family, and that they have been the slowest to engage in or invest in real estate. So they have a down payment, they have money in their pocket, but they have been very shy to buy, and that is because they became, they came of age. Their formative years, later teens, whatever, occurred during this 2008 crisis, and they heard about rolling foreclosures and this kind of thing. It was wasn't it the greatest number of foreclosures that we'd ever seen since like the Great
29-30
Depression.
Yeah.
And so there was like I tell people, this is not something that's just going to recur, because there was a reason they called it. We've had two things in the U.S. who called it great. There was the Depression and the Recession, and they were called that for a reason. They are not usual. And so, but we have got to educate out there as to why this is a benefit to them, and how they can get their inspiration and make. I think it comes down to the numbers, and I think it comes down to just basic education. I would love to see in schools basic education, financial literacy, talking about all of this, how to not be beholden to others for the basic things you need in life, like housing. It's like I've explained to some buyers, what if in our country, people rented cars on the regular, but there were a few who bought them, or you went to another country where you noticed that's kind of what everyone did. And they were like, buy it, but then I'd have to pay for repairs and mechanics and stuff. And instead, everyone just rented a car. I mean, I love the look on your faces because that's the look on the face of every single young buyer that I talk to. When I say it, they look at me like I'm nuts. Who the heck what do you mean rent a car? I could own one. But that car that you're paying $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 for is dropping in value 20 to 30% the day after you bought it. And it's not going to go up in your lifetime. Very unlikely. It's interesting what people invest in, and they're okay with taking an $800 to $1,000 a month payment on a really nice car before they'll consider to do that on a home.
I know.
That is very backwards and upside down, and that's an education gap that we have to find a way to fill. Literally one family at a time.
The haves and have-nots, and that's what I'm scared for our kids' generation, is that the affordability gap is getting, further and further apart.
Because wages are not keeping up with the cost of housing.
Correct, and the cost of housing and with the rates. I mean, it's hard for a $4,000 monthly payment on some of these homes that are considered entry level in our area. Who can do that when you're coming out of high school making $20 an hour? You can't. So when you have an opportunity to buy and you can afford it, even if it's uncomfortable and you're stretching yourself to do it, if you can become one of the haves instead of the have-nots, buy.
Yes.
That's what I keep trying to tell
because
people.
The gap that's not in their favor right now, that's making that house actually kind of expensive right now, will work greatly in their favor once they have it and it's theirs.
Yep.
That very thing will work in their favor. The fact that the housing goes up in value.
Like, you're going to go from $2,000 a month to $25,000 for rent to $3,000 a month for rent. Well, you're going to spend $3,500 a month on this house right now, which is way more than your $2,000 a month for rent, right? But in 5 years, when that rent's $4,000 and you've refinanced down to $3,000, it's inverted. Right? So yes, it's more painful up front. You're going to have to pay a little more to get into this house. But then you're fixing that price. It's only going to get lower as you refinance when rates come down. I mean, taxes and insurance go up a little bit, but rents are going to far surpass that 5 or 10 or 15 years from now. You're still going to be way down here in this little payment. My payment on my house right now that I bought in 2017 is way less than what it would be to rent. I mean, I can rent that thing for $1,500 more a month than I'm paying for it in a mortgage.
Yep. And not only that, I mean, when you first get into a home, and this was something it was in the kitchen table debate that my husband and I had when we were first looking at that home in 01, that first one, it was, we're going to have to minimize XYZ budget, in order to afford this, because the house I really wanted and that we really wanted was, kind of a
stretch.
Large, it was like a stretch. And so I call it like the, beans and rice year, whatever, like, we ate beans and rice that year. We literally did have to budget down. We had to not buy any cars. We had to really think how we were using our money for the next, 3+ years. But
that catapulted
other thing, it catapulted us to something else. But also the other thing is that if you buy with a fixed rate mortgage, which is the only one that I advocate for, yes, you can refinance it down over time and take money out and do things like this. But really, even if it just stays the same, your wage tends to go up over time. And even though it doesn't go up at a rate that you and I think that it should, versus the cost of housing and all that kind of stuff, the fact is people's wage will go up over time. And so that house payment that seems like a big thing, a big stretch at the time, it gets easier and easier, where 5 years in, and my husband had a few 3 to 6% raises, and I had gone back to work and whatnot. That was all of a sudden, it was like we dropped our house payment by $500 a month, and then $1,000 a month, and then whatever. And it was way more digestible. And in the meantime, yes, if we'd kept renting, it would have simply been the same or gone up, in fact, relative to what we make.
Correct.
I saw this analogy, and it showed home buyers in 2023 are saying, "Man, I'm so glad I bought in 2013." 10 years ago, I'm so glad I bought in 2013.
Oh, yeah.
And what are they going to be saying in 2033? I'm so glad I bought in 2023.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
kind of that gap. Now go back to affordability really quick. I remember when house prices went into 6 digits in Clark County. I lived in Clark County, and I remember them saying, "Who's ever going to be able to afford an entry-level home at $100,000 at the time?"
Wow.
No, this was like 1991. Okay, yeah, 1991, and they're like, nobody's going to be able to afford an entry. I remember my mom saying, "You'll never be able to buy a house at that much money."
Yep.
I'll take 10 of them, please.
I know,
Yes,
that's what
exactly.
like.
Exactly.
If I could go back,
I remember
20
vividly
years.
this Ajo neighborhood that was coming in across the street from the home that I was living in when I was in my early 20s. And it was, you come in, they broke up this 5-acre parcel and they were 133.9. And I'm like, that is ludicrous. Like, who in their right mind would pay $133,900 for a home?
Right.
I wish I would have bought 10. You know what I mean? Because they're all worth 4 plus 10.
But we're going to be saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
In 10 years.
That's
Like,
what is
oh,
so
man,
hard for people to visualize and imagine.
I wish I would have. We're going to be looking at 2023 and saying, man, I wish I would have bought 3 houses at that price now.
The biggest detriment of a population who, at any age, from teenage on up, lived through the Great Recession in our lifetime, the biggest detriment is that they believe there's this thing where a house can be $100,000 and drop to 60, you know, at some point in the future. And that is an unrealistic non-event that will only occur a couple times in a century if all
ever.
other factors work right. You know, what was it, Devon? You gave me the statistic years ago that out of the last 8 U.S. recessions, home values, the actual value of the house, fell in only one of them. And that was the Great
They either
Recession.
stayed or went up
Right.
during a recession in 7 out of the last 8 recessions.
Yeah.
Crazy stat.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it is just, I think it's just so sad because, again, it comes to that financial literacy. It's so sad to me that, so many people who either came of age or, were adults or whatever during the recession, the Great Recession, believe that this is a thing that will happen again and again and again. And they just think, okay, real estate, you're in sales, you're just
Once
saying,
bitten,
you're
twice
saying
shy.
whatever.
Yeah.
Once bitten, twice shy.
That's
yeah.
what it is,
Wasn't that a good
know?
album by someone a long time ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm showing my age again. Yeah. I think it's the saddest thing because I watch people miss out. And what I will tell you also is that, we had buyers, and I think you alluded to some of this, Larry, is that we had buyers that were really dragging their feet over the last 3 years. But my agents doing their job kept saying, look, you really should consider getting into this market. You should really consider, it's not about even being an investor at that point. It's about you just don't own the place you live in. You are enriching a landlord. Stop doing that. If you have a job and the capability to do otherwise, please stop doing that. Please stop giving extra money to the IRS. Actually take back that which is yours through that mortgage interest rate reduction and so on. And stop, in fact, improving, repairing, and over improving another person's home. That's very common. People plant landscaping. They, do repainting. They install beautiful light fixtures. I have met people at their homes, and I've gone and looked at rental homes to evaluate it for resale and seen all the improvements that the tenants that they had put into these places. And it's just incredible to me. But if they could just go from that to understanding that they have the capability to invest in themselves and that they can bring their own selves up. But it is just, it's a very sad gap in the fear and horror that people remember and the news and everything that transpired from 08.
We got to wrap up.
All right.
Our 4 to 5 is almost 4 to 6.
Thanks for coming. This is a great conversation.
It was
a lot of
excellent.
fun.
That's why it went
Yeah.
almost an hour longer.
Which is okay because I can chop this into 2 parts.
Yeah, we
which is-
figured
yeah.
this will be cut up, but
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
And it'll be cut up into little tiny segments, which is great. That's the
Yeah,
point.
you'll have a lot of content too to be able to
Cool.
share and
Yeah.
repost and
Yeah.
you know.
That's the beauty of this
Yeah.
podcast. It's just a
Very cool.
conversation among friends, and we're just spitting.
Yeah.
And
I love
you
it.
know,
I do too.
That's
We have a
what
lot
it
to
is.
say too, which is great.
Yeah. We'll do this again.
Yeah,
I'd love to
let's do
I'd
it
love to
again.
have you back on again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Not
I
in 10
appreciate
years.
it.
We'll
Yeah.
do it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
and
soon.
thanks, Devon, for your
Of course.
wisdom and amazingness and for bringing me here. So,
Of
yeah.
course.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Till next time.
We'll work on it.
Keep on.